Hello, Power Up Nation. I'm Pat Council, and on Designing Your Life today, let's talk about a real truth about your goal achievement. It may not be specifically you, but it is a real truth when it comes to achieving goals. We're still in our Summer Success series. So with that being said, there is another assessment test, if you will, that I have uploaded for you. You can go to designingyourlifetoday.com/success series. You can download it and you can answer those questions. Now, this one is a money assessment test, and it's not all about money. It does include quite a few money questions. However, some of the questions are designed to help you see why you're not making the kind of money you want to make in your business, but also it's designed to help you see the kind of connection that you have to achieving your goals. With that being said, let's get right into a real truth about your goal achievement. One of the things about achieving a goal is that when we set a goal, we get excited about it. We even have a picture in our imagination about the goal. So there's no reason for us not to get on track and stay on track when it comes to achieving the goal. So the question becomes, what is causing us not to stay focused? What would cause us not to stay on track? Now, in this podcast episode, I'm going to be nice, but very, let's say, direct with you. And it's important that you take a moment to be direct with yourself. So with that being said, you're probably saying, okay, what is this real truth? What is it? What is it? The real truth is honesty. When it comes to achieving a goal or not achieving a goal that we've set, usually honesty is one of the hiccups. Because when you think about honesty, we often think about things like, well, I don't steal, or, I don't lie, or these kinds of things. However, we think about it in terms of how we treat other people or how we interact in other situations. So with that being said, we want to talk about honesty when it comes to you being directly honest with yourself. If you're not getting the results that you're after, one of the things that could be blocking you is your ability to be honest with yourself. And so what would that look like? That would look like you asking yourself, what is it I'm not doing that I know I need to do in order to move forward when it comes to achieving my goals, when it comes to getting the results that I desire? That's not always an easy thing for us to do, because with honesty, when we're honest about what we're not doing, and we know that we must do it in order to get results, we also recognize that we are not being obedient to our calling. We're not being obedient. And first and foremost, we're not even being obedient to ourselves. And so it's very important that we are obedient when it comes to achieving a goal. And we're talking about obedience to yourself in the sense that you were the one who set the goal. But most importantly, if this is a vision or an idea that was given to you by God, which most good ideas and visions come from your spirit, and they were given to you by God, then you're being disobedient in that area as well. This is where you have to sit down and spend some time with yourself and have a nice conversation with where you're headed, the decisions that you're making. What decisions are you prepared to make? What are you prepared to do? What are you prepared to stop doing? Or what are you prepared to not do? There's nothing wrong with pushing your goal aside and saying, you know what, I don't think I want to achieve this goal. However, if you're pushing a goal aside that's attached to your purpose or your calling, you are positioning yourself to have a very unfulfilling life. And I know what that feels like While real estate was a great stepping stone to success in the business that I have today, I learned a lot about running a business when I was in real estate. However, I stayed in real estate longer than I was supposed to. I felt the spiritual promptings that it was time for me to get out of real estate. It was time for me to move on. It was time for me to actually follow through on my God-given purpose. But you know what I chose? Yes, I'm confessing. I chose to keep making as much money as possible. But here's the thing. You can make as much money as you possibly can, and you can stay in something when it's time for you to let go of it. But you know what happens? All of a sudden, you get that feeling of being unfulfilled. When we are unfulfilled, with that comes unhappiness, and it becomes a kind of a gateway that opens the door to you being someone that you were not designed to be. Keep in mind, we all have a creator, and we were all sent here for a purpose. So how do we really know that we have a purpose? Well, first of all, there's something that excites you. For example, do you want to be a writer? Does something keep calling you to write that book? Is something calling you to be a speaker? Is something calling you to be a teacher, and a teacher in different areas? I mean, I don't teach young kids, but I am a business coach as well as a certified life coach. So think about these things. What is really the thing that excites you the most? And how do you know you even have a purpose? Well, it tells us in the Bible, God says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, he said that he had a purpose for you. In other words, he said, I consecrated you. So think about these things, and you want to follow through on whatever purpose you've been given. If we didn't have a purpose, we would pretty much be listless, and we wouldn't like doing anything. We would just kind of go with the flow and be one of the herd. And you know, when I say one of the herd, I'm saying it's just we're in the race with everyone else to go nowhere. So think about this. Are you really being honest to your calling? Are you being honest with the goals that you set? Honesty, or a lack of it, being honest with yourself, will prevent you from achieving your goals. Now, as human beings, it is easy for us to fool ourselves because we have the ever-loving ego that is there to protect us from the real truth. It's the ego's purpose to protect you actually from harm, to prevent you from being hurt to the point where you can't recover, hurt in terms of hurt emotionally and sometimes even physically. So the ego is there to say, hey, don't do that. Don't go any further. Stay safe. And when you think about that, you have to remember that it's not the ego's job to run your life. It is your job to listen to the ego for a minute and decide, is this trying to override what I have been called to do? Is this overriding what's been placed in my spirit? So when you have a goal and you're not achieving that goal, and it really doesn't matter what the goal is, what matters is, is this your real vision? Are you supposed to be achieving that goal? Now, when I say, are you supposed to, nobody can answer that question but you. But I've talked to people throughout, let's say, my adult life, and I've heard them say things, I should be doing this. You know what? I feel like I'm called to do X, Y, Z. And they say these things. And when they say this, then the question in my mind is always, then why are you not doing it? I know of a person who had an amazing goal, and it was to sell a product. And it was a great product. And it was a product that people love. Now the product is already out there, and that person set up the company. That person actually started selling a little bit, and the minute trouble hit, that person backed away from it. But we're talking maybe, 10 years ago when that person started this. But you know what? 10 years later, they're still using the exact same tagline. They still have the voicemail that talks about that company. And And so the question I've asked him is, okay, so you still have all of this. Why are you not working in that business? And he says, I don't know. One of these days I'm going to get back to it. And then I wanted to say, are you really being honest with yourself? You see, there's nothing wrong, again, with tossing a vision to the side, but each time, and I talk to this person every now and then. They live in another state, and we've been friends for, I don't know, probably 30 years, and maybe longer. And so every now and then he'll call to say hi. And so when I ask him what's going on, I never bring up that business, but he always does. And he says, yeah, I've got to get back to my business one of these days. So I would encourage you to ask yourself or do some soul searching about the goals that you set. Is this something that you really desire to do? And if you do, what's stopping you? Are you afraid? And keep in mind, the Bible tells us that God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So the question becomes, well, why am I afraid to do this thing? What is stopping me? You know what's stopping you? These are learned behaviors that can be unlearned. Now, that's easier said than done because you actually have to reinforce it every single day, which is, again, why the scripture tells us to be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Because all the time, whatever those weaknesses are, they are going to come against your mind. There's something that's going to prompt you and go, wow, you know what? You're on the right track. You're doing a great job. But what about this over here? Or suppose this went wrong. Or it's going to send you messages that are counter to the outcome that you're looking for. And if you're not careful, you can convince yourself, well, you know what? I still have time to achieve the goal. Or maybe this isn't for me. Or, you know what? I don't think I'm serious about the goal, so I'm just going to do something different. So even if you're not serious about the goal, you want to be honest with yourself about, yes, whether you're serious or not, but you also want to be honest about, hey, is the reason I'm not serious because I'm not willing to do what it takes? I'm not willing to invest in myself. I'm not willing to do the work. I'm not willing. And so when you're not willing to do something that you're called to do, again, that leads to an unfulfilled life, an unhappy life. These are the people that have time to do nothing except watch television. And that's not a criticism. It's just, I'm being realistic. They have time to watch the news and look at everyone else's life and make a judgment call about other people's lives. I was in the bookstore the other day, and there was a young lady. I hadn't seen her in a long time, and at first I kept thinking I know her, and she was looking at me thinking I think I've seen her here before. So eventually I said something to her, and she says, I think I talked to you, and it had been maybe, I don't know, a couple of years. And I said, yeah. So as I listened to her talk about what she wanted to do, it came back to my memory that, you know what, she's talking about the exact same thing, doing the exact same thing that she was talking about 2 years ago. I asked her, is this something you really want to do? She says, I really want to do it. And I said, may I ask you a question? She said, of course. I said, then why don't you just start? And she says, you know what? I don't know. And we kept it light, and it was a nice conversation. But then she changed the conversation, and she wanted to talk about, I don't know, some murder, a lady that murdered her children, and now she's on trial for that. And I thought, you know what? She asked me, what did I think about that? And I told her, I said, I really don't have an opinion because, number one, I don't know this woman. Number two, I don't watch those kinds of things on television. I said, the end of the story I'll get the answer in the end of the story. Now, whether it's the correct answer or not, in other words, if she's sentenced to jail, then maybe it's justice or maybe it's not. I don't know. But I told her either way, I said, I want to quote a scripture to you that I always remind myself of whenever I want to get involved into something that I can do nothing about or that I don't intend to do anything about it. And I said, I'm going to be about my Father's business. So what that means is I'm going to do the thing that I was put here to do, put my attention on that, see who I can help, and do my part. You know what? If we all made that conscious decision that we're going to follow through on our goals and do what we're called to do, then it doesn't mean that everything's going to be perfect, but it does mean that you will be fulfilled. And it also means that things will be, let's say, less imperfect. They won't be as awful as they seem to be. Okay. And it seems as though I heard someone say, it seems as though things are getting worse and worse. And in my mind, I'm thinking it's because those of us who are called to do what we're called to do are not doing it. Now, notice I said us, because I have to give myself a checkup every now and then as well. I have to have a conversation with myself and take a look at my life. As Socrates says, an unexamined life is not worth living because it's an unfulfilled life. It's a boring life. It's a life where that person has nothing to do but complain. And so when you stop and think about it, it is worth it for you to spend some quiet time with yourself and actually perhaps do some of these assessment tests. They're easy, you guys, and they don't take a long time, but they will kind of, let's say, turn the light bulb on. You'll get some ideas and you'll get a better picture of your direction, and you will get a sense of what it will take to renew your excitement about the goals that you set. As we press forward during this year, remember, this is 2026. It's the year to get in the mix. And so what does that mean? I've been talking about that off and on throughout this year. It means that it's time for you to become involved in your own life, in the sense that you're doing what it is you're called to do. When we're watching someone else, I don't know, court TV, I don't know. I think that's what she was watching. I've never watched it. But of course I know of it. And so when we're doing things like that, unless, I don't know, it's a part of our calling to sit there and watch every single trial for whatever purpose. I wouldn't know what that purpose is because, well, it's not my purpose. But for whatever purpose, if we're called to do that, that's something different. But if you're watching it for the sensationalism of it, or so you can give some commentary to which you're going to, well, earn not one thin dime, unless it's your calling, and someone's paying you to do it, then it's not worth it, let's say, to stay in that lane. So it is important to take that quiet time and assess yourself and ask the magic questions, if you will. And when you ask the magic questions, you're going to get some amazing answers. Every single goal that you set for this year, and as you become more involved with the goals that you set and you get in the mix with your own life, you're going to see something amazing happen. You're going to get a clear understanding of what it means to do life with power. Now, this is a tagline that was put into my spirit years ago, I think in 2027, and probably before then, but that's when I started using it. So if you get that understanding, and I can tell you when it was put into my life, I thought, okay, I got the vision, but did I fully live it out? Not the way I could have. But because I constantly take a look at myself and I have to be honest with myself, even if it stings a bit, I'm able to do life with power. And I fully recognize that I'm built by design to win. When I say you're built by design to win, understand this. That doesn't mean that you won't have any challenges, you guys. It doesn't mean that at all. It means that you will be able to overcome the challenges. It's how we're made. Okay, that's how God made us. So think about it and be honest with yourself. And as we start to wrap up, I just want to remind you, actually of two things. Number one, if you look in the show notes, I have been putting my book, High Impact Power Goal Setting, in the show notes. And in that book, it is an easy to follow workbook with a few stories that will kind of prompt you to do some things or inspire you to do something. And it also gives you a some truths about what it takes to achieve the goals that you set. It's on Amazon, so you can take a look at it. And I believe Amazon has it on sale. So it's a great book. It's great to start you out when it comes to goal achievement, but it's great to help you get a clearer picture of who you are and to fall in line with the identity that you, let's say, were made to have, and the identity that you would like to adopt so that you can achieve the goals that you set. You can finish this year very, very strong, but you have got to be honest with where you are. Now, one last thing about the honesty part, and I'll get to the second thing. The honesty part is that sometimes we are unintentionally dishonest with ourselves. Okay, but just because you don't know the answers, just because you don't realize what's going on, that does not mean you won't suffer the consequences of it. That's why it's important that we learn and we invest in ourselves and we come to understand who we are, and we we do what it takes to strengthen our confidence. So with that being said, that's one of the reasons I put that workbook together, and I made it very easy to follow. A lot of people like it, so it's getting really great feedback, and it has gotten great feedback over the years. Okay, and the second thing I want to remind you one last time to go to designingyourlifetoday.com/success series. If you have not registered for a success series, then that means you didn't get the goodies that we had prior to for early registration. However, you can still register, and I'll be sending out some more goodies and offering some things that will help you to achieve your goals, that will give you that confidence, that will strengthen you, that will excite you. So with that being said, you guys, go to designingyourlifetoday.com/success series. The second assessment test is up. Those questions, they are amazing. They helped me. They've helped many others that I've coached, and I know they will help you. In the meantime, do life with power, knowing that you're built by design to win.